Welcome back to Kevin Pollak's Chat Show. I am, as always, Chat Show. How the fuck are you? No, really. Damn it. Write to us, won't you? KPCSfanmail@gmail.com. Going to read one of your letters today. Why am I excited? Write to us, KPCSfanmail@gmail.com. Recent shows you might enjoy. Perhaps you're tuning in today because you saw the name of our guest. You said, "The fuck is this? The fuck is this show?" And you want to know more about this particular show, or you have no interest whatsoever still, I share this information. Very recent Academy Award-winning former guests you may enjoy dialing in, the Allison Janney, the Sam Rockwell, or maybe you're a fan of the Elon Musk sat across from me for a fucking hour. And from not too long ago, Maria Bamford, who our guest today has worked with. We'll talk about that. And maybe a fave. Hero and, well, friend, Ricky Gervais. Dial that one up. For those of you who give a good goddamn about the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, since we spoke, just in the past handful of days, the show won the damn Peabody Award. Good luck explaining what the fuck that is. And then later that night, the new president of Amazon Studios, Jennifer Salk, announced to the show's creators that it was picked up for a third season. For context, we just completed shooting episode 3 of season 2. The show was picked up to 2 seasons from pilots. So season 2 was always a fait accompli. Interesting, incredible time to be told there'll be a third season as we're shooting the 3rd episode of season 2. Season 2, by the way, will drop sometime after Thanksgiving, as season 1 did. And what we've shot this season so far is so damn good I want to cry. That's how I'm going to share that with you. The past 3 days we did table reads of Eps 4, 5, and 6, and all I'll say on that front is the Maisel world is expanding and contracting in hilarious ways. Hey, let's get to some of your fan mails. Write to us at kpcsfanmail@gmail.com. Hi, Kevin and crew. That's all it said, which I thought was a very strange thing to send along. Oh, wait, there is more. I've been listening for about a year. Last year I lost my favorite uncle. I wonder how the other uncles felt. My grandmother and my grandfather in 3 months' time. This could be a letter from a serial killer. Wait a second. Nope. During the road trips to and from funerals, I binge listened to your podcast, and it was exactly what I needed to hear when my real life had become so dark, so thank you for that. Well, you're very welcome. It's always a thrill to read from anyone, to share something like that this show could affect someone's life in a positive way when they need it most. That's about as good as I could hope. So thank you for sharing that. This wonderful person goes on to say, recently in your interviews with Maria Bamford and Scott Thompson, the conversations have been so thoughtful and engaging. I listened to each of them twice. I think that talking about topics like getting fired, frustrated professionally, and recognizing that grudges don't serve anyone is so impactful and so good to hear about from people that we respect. So thank you again for what you do. I've been a fan since your stand-up days. You were around when we created Fire. And look forward to whatever comes next in your corner. Also, if Scott Thompson still has barnacles, quote-unquote, after burning his list of names, tell him to write the names down on paper, put them in a Ziploc baggie of water, and toss them in the freezer. Works like a charm. Best, Melissa Sinove. Well, thanks, Melissa. How nice of you. Write to us again, kpcsfanmail@gmail.com. Let's get to our guest. He's been so kind to sit there and I'm going to say feign listening as good as anyone I've ever seen. I'm going to attempt the name, and then we're going to talk about it. Kurt Braunohler. Now, Kurt, how'd I do?
It's pretty good.
Not bad?
Yeah, Braunohler. It's more brown.
Is it more brown?
It is more brown. It's not spelt that way.
No.
But no, not at all.
In fact, I'm going to go German in origin.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. And do you think we added the Ohler, O-H-L-E-R, to Braun because of the success that Braun had for the German people as a name?
I mean, Braun would be such a better name. It would be
Kurt Braun? Well, that was on you. You could have changed it.
I could have changed it. I know.
You had the power.
So many years. I could have changed my name to anything.
Did you ever think about it?
Yeah, but all the names I came up with were dumb. Kentucky Brown Horse was a big one.
Oh,
that was in the running.
Oh,
it's a nice name, right?
It's a great name.
Yeah. Kurt Sherbert was another one.
Sure.
K Pickle.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I just decided to stick with it, and I regret it.
I'm so glad we could talk about that first then.
Yeah.
Braunohler. Braunohler.
Yeah.
Braunohler.
Yeah, there it is.
There it is. Braunohler.
Easy.
So I'm so out of the loop that when I first saw you on stage at San Francisco Sketch Fest, I believe a couple of years ago now, and we rushed backstage to insist how funny you are, I felt like I was the 1 millionth customer. And what's with the discoveries way after the fact. But that's, I guess, the beauty of the art form.
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna gain new fans along the way.
Yeah. Also, congratulations on Marvelous Miss Maisel. That's really exciting.
Thank you.
That's thrilling to have already a third season locked in.
Yeah, I was trying to remember the last time. I haven't done a lot of television per se, not from a lack of want. Just hasn't worked out.
Yep.
As we know. So yeah, the 2 seasons from pilot was already amazing.
Yeah.
But that started to happen. I think Netflix planted their first flag in original programming, House of Cards. As I recall, they won the bid away from HBO and Showtime by guaranteeing 2 seasons. That was the big thing.
They just have so much. They can just do anything, it seems like. Netflix is just killing it.
Did you see the South Park?
No, I haven't.
Well, I think the only thing I remember is just someone answering the bank of phones at Netflix by saying, "Netflix, hello, you're greenlit." Yeah.
Oh, I wish it was that easy.
Well, they make it look that way, don't they? Yeah. So yeah, it was interesting timing on the 3rd season. A convolute, if that's a word still, of things. The show won the Peabody Award, and then from the stage, Amy Sherman-Palladino, our fearless leader, and her husband Dan, accepting the award, and she sort of decided to call an audible and waved it at the new president of Amazon Studios' face and said, "So do we get a 3rd season now that we're still winning stuff?" And within an hour, the president was over at the
That's pretty great.
show creators and saying, "We were going to wait till June, but shit."
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And then I think all the other networks were in New York at their upfronts this last week, and I think that might have. Also, it's just a great move for a new president to take a show that is actually doing well for the studio and celebrate it and kind of make it her own by stepping in and going, "Look what I'm going to do with this thing." I've not been enthusiastic about something I was involved in to this level in maybe 20-something.
That's exciting.
Years. So that alone.
Yeah. And it's a great show. I'm in the middle of the 1st season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very well done. It's well written, well acted.
I love the colors of it. I love the way it looks. And in addition to it being very funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep quoting Andy Richter's reviews that he gave on Twitter. I think it was January, February, a couple months after it had dropped. And by then, people were starting to yell at each other. "Have you seen this thing?"
Yeah.
You know. And so he said, "Finally watched the Maisel program, really enjoying it. Although, man, do they make it look tough to be a Jew." There's a lot of complaining. It's 1958, so it's a different kind of Jew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you were born, in fact, in the Neptune, New Jersey? Is that correct?
I was born in Michigan, but then I left immediately.
Oh, damn that internet.
I know, but I grew up in New Jersey, yeah.
How immediate?
2.
Sure. See, now I take great pride in saying I was born in San Francisco, but in fact, at age 2, when I had no choice.
Nope. Or memory.
Well, certainly no memory. We packed up and moved to the promise of the suburbs, which San Jose, California was in 1959.
Yeah.
So, but I have tremendous pride in saying I'm from San Francisco.
Yeah. Did you come up in San Francisco?
Well, then I ultimately moved there when I was 2021 to pursue stand-up full-time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That must have been a fantastic time to be doing stand-up in that city.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
77, 78, 79, 80.
Great.
Yeah, redonk. The birth of Robin Williams and Dana Carvey. And so when I started out, I want to know for you, when I started out in San Jose, There were no comedy clubs. There was no comedy scene.
I think there's one club there now called Rooster T. Feathers.
Well, Rooster T. Feathers it became this great thing in the 80s. There's been improv in San Jose downtown at a historical landmark theater that's kind of amazing. That's been there for a while now. But again, when I started, so I would go to bars where they had live music and sort of worm my way into going on when the band took a break.
Yeah, much like the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, really.
Right. Well, although the Gaslight Club features sort of solo live performers kind of thing, whereas I would go to a shit kicker bar.
Oh, geez. Oh, so it wasn't like a kind of a...
Oh, it was not a show place in any way, shape, or form. There was live music as a way to bring people in, and but no one... I mean, they were cover bands. They were that sort of thing. But then when the band would take a break, the very loud music would stop. Suddenly, men and women had a chance to finally speak to each other in the guise of flirting and buying drinks and communicating, trying to get laid. And then there's a guy up there doing Columbo, So in many regards...
That is a rough way to start.
I argue it was rougher than strip clubs.
Oh, yeah.
Which, a lot of Jay Leno and of that era, Robert Klein, I think, had to suffer through because that always sounded the worst to me.
Yeah.
We came to see tits, and who's this guy talking?
Why is there a man talking?
Yeah, but that gave birth to Rickles. Rickles was sort of the MC.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
He was the MC, and he would go out and then rip into the first couple of rows. First he was just introducing straight the girls, and then eventually someone was late or something, and he had to riff.
Oh, wow.
And he just started making fun of the guys in the front row, and that slowly became that.
Wow.
I know, right?
Yeah, that is kind of amazing.
So I'm very curious always about the origin story.
Yeah.
I love them so. So at the age of 2, they load you into a station wagon, I'm just going to guess, and off to, was it in fact Neptune? I like Neptune just because that's where Jack Nicholson was born.
Yes. So we actually moved to Asbury Park first.
Perfect.
Neptune's right next door to Asbury Park. Yeah, so my parents got divorced when I was 2. My dad stayed in Michigan, and it was me and my mom moving to Jersey.
Just the two of you?
Yep. We had an uncle who lived in Asbury, so we lived with him for a little while.
Great.
And then she bought a house in Neptune, and then I stayed there for the rest until I left at 18.
So then the formative years were in fact in Neptune.
Yeah.
So the internet has not completely
correct
left me adrift.
Exactly.
With its insisting.
But still Jersey Shore.
Yeah, which I know nothing about.
Oh,
There's
I love
actually
it.
surfing there.
Oh, yeah, I grew up surfing.
Right.
Yeah, I still surf. But the Asbury Park at the time, because that was the city next to Neptune, it was in the 50s, it was like this crown jewel of the Jersey Shore. Everyone from New York would come and vacation there.
Right.
There was like 6 movie theaters in a 4-block radius.
Holy crap.
Big casino on the boardwalk, like mini Atlantic City. And then in the late 60s, it just completely collapsed economically. And so the whole time that I was growing up, it was just a ghost town.
Yes.
Like every single storefront was empty or it was a band practice space.
And had it evolved even from that by the time you were aware into something sad or ultimately cool because you had little ghost town to hang out in?
Yeah, it was sad for a little while, and then it became cool, and now it's like hip.
Crazy.
Now it's like hip. And so it's like to go back now, it's like it's very fun because it's finally like starting to catch back up. People are like putting restaurants and stuff like that in there. It's got a very cool vibe because it still has kind of a falling apart infrastructure look to it.
Yeah.
Because it was all built in the 20s,
Yes.
So it's gorgeous architecture that's just like faded and falling into the ocean. So it's a pretty cool spot now.
Listen, if we can't count on hipsters
Yes.
for landmass renovation, what the fuck are they good
What are they
for?
doing? Making bicycles taller? That's it.
I miss tall bikes. So yeah, was that your first time at Sketchfest, by the way, a couple of years ago?
No, I think I've been I've been a lot. I've been a bunch of times. It was probably, I think the first time was around 2007 or so. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're in that slowly decaying, soon-to-be idyllic setting.
Yeah.
What strikes you first comedically from memory that actually connects to some sort of tissue?
I really wanted to, I was raised Catholic, and
I'll say.
I really wanted to be a priest.
Sure.
For a long time, people would ask me, I was like a little boy, I was like, what do you want to be? I was like, a priest. And then I realized that what I actually wanted was to stand in front of people and talk while they couldn't talk. And so once learning that, it was
there actually a
relief.
moment of that clicking?
When I first started doing acting and stuff, I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. I don't want to be a priest.
Right.
I just wanted to be able to talk while everybody else can't talk.
Yeah. Better potentiality of getting laid.
Yeah.
As well.
Well, 100%.
Yeah. But something clicked somewhere in terms of funny.
Yeah, I mean, funny was always just kind of it's the way I interact. I think I grew up and I was in Neptune, which was kind of a poorer area, but I went to school at the Catholic school in the richer suburb, Spring Lake, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't fit in there. And so because of the not fitting in, I realized that was my only skill, was that I could make people laugh because it's the only way that I could kind of survive there.
You were not fitting in because you had dirt on your shoes?
I mean, I remember one specific time, I shaved all around the bottom of my head to make a skater cut. And that to me was the coolest thing in 1986 or something.
At age
10.
Sure.
And then I went to school and it was very, very preppy. And it was just immediately I was laughed out of the school for what I thought to be the coolest possible thing I could do.
Yeah. As you were shaving your head, you were thinking, this will do it.
Yep, this will do it. Oh man, kids are going to think this is cool.
Yeah.
Because it was a cool look. Now I still think about it. I think it's a pretty cool look.
Sure.
And so, yeah, that was and then I realized that I could make people laugh. And that's, when I always had older friends who lived in my town, and I was kind of the comedic relief. That was why I was allowed to hang out with the older kids.
Were you seeing anybody on TV or in film that were funny that you connected to?
Not specifically. I think I watched stand-up in high school and stuff like that.
Where? How?
Just on television. I don't even know what it was. It was something cable. I still remember there was one, and I don't even know who this was, but I remember this one joke. And I wish I could find out who this comedian is, because this is the first time I saw a joke, and I was like, I love that joke.
Tell me the joke. Maybe I can help.
It is, I was at the airport, and I went to use the bathroom, and there was a sign on the door that said, use floor below, and they didn't even put down paper. Then that's a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty
It's
solid.
a pretty good joke.
It's my joke.
Yeah. It's your joke?
Yeah. It was me that you saw.
No, was it?
No, it wasn't. Oh. Acting.
Beautiful. Yeah. I believed it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Award winning. So yeah, you saw somebody on TV doing stand-up, but still there wasn't a connection to the art form necessarily.
No.
As what you might do.
I came to it in a very roundabout way. I moved to New York in 98, and I started improvising with UCB right when they first opened their doors. And
how did that drift happen?
That was, didn't know what I wanted to do. And a friend of mine had taken a class there, and I'd gone to see his graduation. And there was a short form improv group at my college, but they were called the Buttered Niblets, and I thought it was such a terrible name they couldn't possibly be funny.
Even now, a good name.
But now,
all these years later.
And so when I first saw long form improv, I was really impressed by how cool it was, because there was hadn't been nothing like that in New York until UCB started doing that.
Right.
And I was like, oh. And then when I got on stage and did that, I remember the very first scene I ever did, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Yeah. It was like that feeling. And I had been never passionate about anything. Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. But then I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. Yeah. And then I tried to make a living improvising for 8 years. Yep. And then I realized that's impossible. And
not a thing.
Started writing. Yeah. And I actually get mad at improv sometimes because it kept me from. I was obsessed with the the churchness of it, of this is a thing that only exists in the moment and then it's gone, and to write anything down is bullshit. I was very like in my mind, punk rock about it.
You'd like to punch that version of you in the face.
I wish I'd started writing early. I mean, I didn't start doing stand-up till I was 29.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But you're writing other forms as well. You're writing sketch and you're writing scripts and you're writing.
Yeah. Now, I'm just constantly writing.
Yeah.
And performing. Yeah.
And you ultimately become a teacher, I'm assuming, at UCB.
I become a teacher at a offshoot of UCB called The Pit. And
Sure.
so I start teaching there, and then I was like teaching and coaching, and it
was your life.
Yeah, I was like, in some way I had become the priest that I wanted to be, because it is like this kind of religion when you get into that system with all these people coming looking for something new, and you're like, this is the way, the improv way, and then you all go to church together and watch these shows. And it does feel like, and there's a weird like hierarchy to it and everything. I was actually happy to leave it all behind when I started doing stand-up.
Right. And at 29, you said.
At 29, so I met, we had invented this like long-form movie, which was like shot, scored, and edited while it was watched. And it was very complex. And we had taken that to the HBO Aspen Comedy Festival.
Right.
And then we taken it to Edinburgh, and we lost like $10,000 in Edinburgh. And I was like, that's
Lost?
it. Lost. Yeah.
It cost
$10,000. And at the time, I was 28 years old, and I didn't have that money. So we were all in debt.
Suddenly
and I
the
was
mob's after you.
yeah, the mob, the Scottish mob is after me.
Right.
And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I have to figure out a way. I've been doing comedy for so long. I have no way to pay the bills. And in fact, it's putting me in debt. And so I was like, I got to start writing. And I remember I went to the artistic director at the Pit, and I said, hey, I want to start a variety show. And he's like, Kristen Shaw just asked me the same thing. And I knew Kristen from seeing her perform, and she was backstage at the time, and I literally just walked right backstage. And we had seen each other perform, but we never chatted with each other at all. And I was just like, Kristen, you want to start a variety show with me? She's like, okay. And that's how it happened.
Yeah.
And then we still run that show every Monday night.
Yeah. So the hot tub
Yep.
was born from that backstage moment.
Yeah, and then we just so happened that we have very similar sensibilities, and we wrote sketches very well together. And then we actually ended up touring as a double act for many years. And so we went to
Doing strange bits and pieces.
very weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was very, very weird mix between stand-up and sketch, really. Always addressing the audience directly, but then kind of going into these short plays and stuff.
These characters. And is that where I wrote down, because I looked at some YouTube clips and enjoyed them wildly, the Penelope Princess of Pets.
Yes, Penelope Princess of Pets.
Oh my goodness, so funny.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, crazy funny.
We're thinking about actually trying to bring that back.
Yeah, so you guys start writing together.
Yeah.
And finding outlets suddenly, not just on stage, right? I mean, that's how the film pieces, or is
Yes.
that incorporated into the live show?
It was incorporated into a live show. So we started that for like Super Deluxe and making these. Penelope Princess of Pets is a girl who can talk to animals who has to save the world by killing a senator, and
Sure.
she finds an orphan who is her friend Kyle, and he decides to help her, and she
Played
has a
by you.
talking bird. Yeah,
And who voiced the bird?
Brett Gelman.
Of course he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reggie Watts did the music, and this was all.
Which is so fun, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. We love Penelope. We're trying to make it again. But then, so we took that to, I think the first festival together we did was.
The hot tub or the.
No,
duo?
because we developed it all at Hot Tub and then kind of made it into an hour-long show.
Okay.
Did it at the Melbourne Comedy Festival and won the whole thing, the Barry. And then went to Edinburgh with it, and then just continued going back to Edinburgh with it like 5 years.
What is the Barry? What is the Melbourne?
The Melbourne Comedy Festival? The Barry is like the big award for it. It's like everybody. It's a huge festival, very similar to Edinburgh.
Wow.
And then like the Barry is the big award, which was like the first time I'd ever done a festival and won it. I was like, well, festivals are great.
You won the unattainable.
Yeah, I was like, this is going to be great. What a wonderful
you're
way.
surrounded by people who've been coming back to this festival year after year, getting nowhere near the Barry.
Yeah.
You two knuckleheads walk in, get out of here, I'll kill you, and take home the cherry.
Yeah.
And the berry.
It was nice. It was great. That's not happened since. But it was a nice
doesn't
first
happen.
time. Doesn't happen.
No. In fact, when it does happen, only bad things come from something like that. Any sort of instant success leads to failure.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
And that instant success was also 10 years in. But yeah.
Yeah, but first festival, though.
Yes, exactly. First festival.
But still, just the courage to sort of go out again, right? Because this is after you lost the 10 grand.
Yeah, in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Yeah, doing improv. And this was kind of the first time I was like scripting
And did you
something.
carry those scars with you a little
Oh,
bit?
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and maybe mentioned it
I
to
was
Kristen?
suspicious. I was suspicious of them all.
Yeah.
And then when we went back, it was just a much different thing. It was like, I made the right choice. I had to start writing a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Writing is the gateway to all doors and stages.
I think so.
And windows and moments of happiness.
Yeah.
Do you love writing alone?
I mean, I don't think I love writing at all.
Well, there we have it.
There's that, I think it's a Dorothy Parker quote, like, to write is awful, having written is wonderful.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. Like, when I've gotten something down, I'm like, fuck yeah. Like, there's no better feeling, but going through it, it's just a fight. I just fight. I have to figure out different, like, physical ways to put myself
Is that right?
in the space to, like, get stuff going.
Yeah. I'll pile up the quote-unquote real excuses
Yeah.
to put in between myself and the writing. But when I do hunker down, I actually love it more than everything else.
Really? You do love it?
Yeah, I do. But mostly I'm writing, fiction for scripts.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to create, carve out, and evolve the next hour of stand-up.
Yeah.
I found more joy in scripts.
Yeah, I find them both. I mean, I'm doing them constantly,
Yeah.
both at the same time. Like, that's the one thing that I've been trying to work on is having multiple things that I need to create in 4 different worlds and being able to shift from them, like, even in the same day, you know? I find that to be, like, fascinating. Like, oh, right, we have to just, all right, now we're in this project, and it's not my stand-up anymore, but it's not the movie, it's the TV,
Do we think it's just the irreversible scar of having to do homework in school that stops us from writing? Because the joy we get from writing, even from the Parker quote, is unparalleled.
Yeah, it really is.
And it's all you.
Yeah.
The editing process can go on forever. The rewriting process. I love all of it, and yet hated school and homework so fucking much that I'm personally convinced that's the unfortunate memory that's in the way.
Yeah, being forced to do it as opposed to finding it on your own.
Yeah, which is not the case.
Yeah.
No, there. I mean, I'll have an assignment every now and then that will feel like there's a deadline, but even then, it's kind of bullshit.
Yeah, I love a deadline though. Oh,
Yes.
give it to me.
Yeah. So you start to have success, you and Kristen, and then it becomes this live show. The hot tub thing continues.
Yes, and we still do hot tub now, and that is the one thing I do enjoy is writing something that day and then being able to try it out on stage that night.
That's the greatest.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why we still do hot tub 13 years later, because that's where we write all our material. And at this point, Kristen and I don't write like a double act anymore. It's just us writing our stand-up individually.
Sure.
But that's wonderful.
It's a double act for many, many years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is
Probably like 5 years straight there was just the two of us. And then, but Kristen always had like her own, she had started doing stand-up maybe 5 years before we met.
Right.
And so then it was like she had her own stand-up and then it was the two of us and now it's firmly the two of us.
But the research did suggest this show had a life of its own, like being asked to do a TV pilot in the UK,
Oh,
for
yeah.
example. Talk about that, please.
It was good. Ultimately, it was after we got nominated for the big Edinburgh Award with that show that we did. We didn't win that one though.
Nothing like the Barry.
Nothing like the Barry. That's what people say. The award no Americans ever heard of.
That's right.
And so, that's a thing that Channel 4 over there does, where they kind of like pick a few people they see at Edinburgh, and it's essentially a pilot that actually airs, which is very cool. And then we just made a ton of mistakes with it.
Sure. Primarily
because of our management, who also produced it, and they made a bunch of bad choices for us and didn't give us a choice on anything. It was really I'm angry about it to this day, the way they manipulated us.
It is sort of extraordinary how ne'er-do-wells of show business, called agents and managers, can seize the day quicker, pounce, wrestle it away from the creative entities.
Yep.
As opposed to just sit back and take credit.
Yeah.
Please?
Take credit and the money that you're going to make off of it, not having to just like take it away from the people who's it's their child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember being on a pilot, and the president of the network was insisting, this is great, blah, blah, blah. And my co-star and I instantly tried to get the show's creator fired during the shooting of the pilot because he was fucking horrible. Because broadcast TV, there's that failing upwards thing is a phenomenon that I don't.
That's crazy.
I don't know it exists in any other world.
And there's so much money there. It's the craziest that you could do that.
Well, I think it's an inventory problem. So they need to make X amount. Certainly 20 years ago, they need to make X amount of pilots a year. Mm-hmm. They're just throwing the pasta against the wall to see what sticks. And they've built it into their budgets that they're going to make 80, and 11 of them are going to become series.
Right.
And 4 of those are going to have a life.
Yeah.
And it's every year the pilot season. So they need inventory. They need a lot of showrunners. They need people who are failing upwards.
Yeah.
Who's this guy? What show did he work on? Oh, if you like that show, you don't even research to see what he had to do with it. You just liked Taxi. This guy worked on Taxi?
He did
Bring
catering.
him in.
He did catering.
Yeah, I don't care if he did props. So, and I remember the president of the network saying how great this was. And I said, look, I've been in the comedy trenches now for so long, it's difficult for me to feel like I'm the funniest guy in the room when it isn't up to me what we're doing here, right? If I'm the authority every day on what's really funny, you've got a problem, right? I mean, imagine if I were your weakest link as a guy who just spent 20 years in the comedy trenches.
Yeah.
Like just going round and round. So navigating those waters when either agents, managers, or production company presidents, all these people who spent no time in the creative universe.
And also haven't even spent that much time in the world that you're creating.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is the one thing that can undermine one's happiness, but also one's memory of how fun any of this can be.
Yeah.
Because at some point, also a startling thing I would comment on was a person of authority, instead of continuing to name their positions. They're all the same, whether it's the head of a studio or network, whatever. And their ability, it's a savant level of ability to find the center, the chi of what makes something great, to know where to add the water.
Yeah.
And dilute it. But to be able to find the center, the truth of the piece. Oh, yeah, right there. That moment.
Yeah.
We need to water that down.
Yeah.
It's astonishing. It's like what's the device?
Ruin this thing.
You use to find the water? The dividing rod or whatever
the dividing rod.
Yeah. They have that for the chi
for destroying
of why something's great.
And to take it away.
Yeah. What is the one unique factor that
cut it up into little pieces and then take the pieces away one at a time until there's nothing left in the middle.
Yeah. So it at some point, and then you start to see the various networks and whatnot. One of the great things Netflix has done, and Amazon now, and I think maybe a little bit of Hulu, is finding great talent Certainly Hulu in the case of Sarah Silverman. Finding great talent and saying, whatever you want to do, we will be your benefactor.
Yes.
We'll stay the fuck out of the way.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's how the Sistine Chapel was painted, by the way.
Yeah.
There was a benefactor. There was an artist. The benefactor said, no notes.
Here's the money. Here's money for your paints.
Find a scaffolding. Lie on your back. Let's do this.
Speaking of Amazon, have you seen Patriot?
Not only have I seen it, I refuse to shut up about it to the point.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I can't shut up about it either, and no one's seen it.
I know. Well, here's the thing. I don't, these newer entities are trying to also reinvent the way that they promote, right? And people need to be hammered over the head and wrestled to the ground, especially now that there are over 450 scripted shows on all the various platforms.
So crazy.
I'm screaming about the show so much that yesterday, the Amazon executive who sort of looks after us and was there at the table, he came up to me between the two script readings and said, listen, you've been very vocal about Patriot, and we really appreciate it. And when we launched season 2, would you maybe help sort of influence things on social media and stuff? And I said, I will do anything. I will do anything to help promote this show.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's the tone of it is unlike anything I've ever seen.
It's perfect.
It's so funny, and then also like a thriller.
At the center of it is espionage. But it's the quirkiest, darkest comedy in that world you've ever experienced. If you want something that pushes you in terms of creativity and makes you think, I don't know, it's something like that just makes me feel better about myself.
Yeah.
When I watch it, because it's so fucking good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And also it's like when you think about, I don't know, like when you're creating a TV show, you're creating a movie and you're thinking about tone, I often find it very difficult to kind of like put those things into words because it's a feeling.
Yeah.
It's like an overarching thing that really almost exists in your subconscious. And when you look at that and watch that and the way it makes you feel and the tone of it, I don't know how they did it. That's what surprised me. I'm like, I don't know how you came up with this tone-wise.
Right.
And it's such a fine line, and they do such a great job. Everybody watch Patriot.
Everybody watch, and everybody then tell everyone you've ever met.
Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite thing is to turn somebody on who has a sophisticated comedic palate and watch their head explode with excitement. I'll just drop a name, James L. Brooks, one of the most awarded, successful creative entities the world will ever know. And he sat next to me at this poker game, and so everyone was talking about the new shows they watch. Has anyone seen Patriot? What are you talking about? I start telling him, and then he comes back a couple of weeks later to the game and says, it's maybe the greatest thing I've seen on television in 25 years.
Right?
Yes.
But it's so weird that it seems like a secret, you know?
It's wildly unfortunate.
It's wildly unfortunate. Okay.
This show brought to you by Patriot.
The Patriot.
Just Patriot.
Yeah, just Patriot.
Yeah. The Patriot is starring a guy who hates Jews. So once you turn to stand-up comedy on your own, you make that decision, putting in your 10,000 hours as a solo act becomes what? What's the evolution of that?
So it's been, as you know, when you start stand-up, you're very bad at it. And I was very bad for a very long time. And then I did my first album with Kill Rockstar Records. I was like the first comedy, and they were like a kind of a punk label out of the Pacific Northwest that I listened to when I was a kid.
Right.
And I was very excited to be their first comedy album, and now a bunch of comedians are doing records with them. I did that, and then I did a half hour with Comedy Central, and then I did an hour with Comedy Central, and now I've got my new hour ready to go, and I'm just looking to sell it.
Do you feel when you first started you were writing similarly to the type of material you did as a duo in terms of high concept and quirky?
No, not high concept.
Great.
I have a very different stand-up voice than I do a sketch voice. What I really liked about stand-up was the idea that it could appeal to like anyone. I've been trying to become less
eccentric.
Yeah, not less eccentric, but less like when you do improv is only for people who know what improv is.
Sure.
You know, and it's a very small group of people. You can't just show it to someone in the middle of the country like your aunt, you know, and have her be like, I don't know what this is. And then the sketch with Chris and I did was like a little wider, but it was still like for high-end comedy a palette.
Yes.
And now I think stand-up, that's what I like about it, is that it is an everyman's theater.
But I did read that while the act was evolving, there was sort of a breakthrough at some point when you sort of allowed vulnerability to creep into your point of view.
I think so. I think, at first, you know, my first album, I think, is just a bunch of jokes. It's just like me learning how to write jokes. And so there is not a lot of person there. There's not a lot of like vulnerability there. And now at this point, it's all vulnerable. It's just all about
I find that the audience, for the most part, in a comedy environment, just wants to hear the personal stuff. That sometimes when I do anything that even resembles a bit, I can sense from the audience, Jesus.
Yeah.
Don't waste our fucking time with these written materials. I mean, it's a little debilitating.
It is interesting, and I still do like bits. You know, I like a well-crafted build to a joke, and the jokes I like are always a little weirder. And so in my style right now is that balance, where it's like a personal story that's got a lot of hits, you know, a lot of jokes to it, but then right after that will be kind of a more esoteric kind of conceptual joke, and then back to a personal story. So I can kind of weave them in and out of that. And I hope that will be successful.
Do you? How foolish of you. Amish Guide to Fucking. Now, when you come across a title like that for your one-man show, do you instantly know that you're done searching for just the title part?
Oh, yeah. That was immediately I knew it was going to be called The Amish Guide to Fucking. Because that is about, that's how I was dating this woman for 13 years, from age 18 to 31. And the way we're like, at 31, we had never talked about getting married. And I said, why haven't we talked about...
In the 18 years?
In the 18 years.
Was it 18?
Or 13 years. In the 13 years, we had never talked about whether or not we would get married.
Wow.
And I brought it up, and she said, well, you know, I think we should sleep with other people before we do that, because we had never slept with anyone else other than each other. Oh. And so I was like, okay. I was interested in that as well. And then we decided to take a 30-day Rumspringa to have sex with other people. Mm-hmm. And then that turned into 3 months of that.
Not everyone knows what the Rumspringa is, but I guess it's the Amish.
The Amish people, when they turn 16, they're allowed to go out, and
which is
not the Amish.
Such a good time in the maturity of a human being to send them out.
To go out essentially to do meth, because they're just in the Pennsylvania wilderness. You know, it's Amish and meth essentially. Then they go out.
On their way to sex, they find meth.
Exactly.
And never actually get laid.
And it's kind of a trick for them, too, because if they don't come back by the time they're 18, they're ostracized from everyone they've ever known in their entire life.
So your 30-day became 90-day.
It became 90-day. And
you were talking throughout it?
First month, we didn't have any contact. And then the second month, we started dating each other as well as sleeping with other people. And then the third month, I was in Australia.
Winning the Berry?
Mm-hmm. And that's where I met an Australian woman, and I fell in love there. And so then it ended that. Honestly, it was a really complicated. We had never broken up with anyone in our whole lives. We'd just been dating since we were 18 years old. So it was like a complicated, weird way to break up. And so then I wrote. I think that show was maybe an hour long.
Right.
But I'm happy that I never recorded that. I wouldn't have been proud of it being in the world.
But there was a recorded version of something for This American Life.
Yes.
About
about the story.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of the bones of what the show was.
But it seems in the trajectory that was sort of a breaking point also for your POV as a stand-up.
Yes. That is the first time I started kind of talking
about...
about...
personal.
Yes, 100%. And also at that time, then I was shortly after that single again.
I'll say.
Or for the first time, really. And I think that lent itself to being much more vulnerable and kind of being able to write about that, which was like a relatable experience, but in a weird way.
That's the best kind of
Yeah.
performance, I think.
Yeah.
Relatable, but in a weird way.
Yeah, where people are like, all right, I'm on board, but that guy's a weirdo.
Yeah. That's what I remember thinking, seeing your act at Sketchfest.
Oh, okay.
I'm on board. This guy's a weirdo, and I love him. This is fantastic. He has such freedom and maturity and vulnerability and hilariousness happening all at the same time.
Thank you.
No, really. It was kind of, well, you saw we rushed backstage and we wouldn't shut up.
I really appreciate it.
You're the patriot of... I don't mean to damn you like that to oblivion.
Oh, man, that's the highest compliment.
Sam Levine, who's not here but usually is, loved your involvement in Bunk and would like to pitch in whatever it takes to bring it back.
Oh, wow. Bunk was so fun. Bunk was a show we did for IFC that I hosted. And it was before At Midnight, but it was comedians would compete against each other, but it was more of an improv-based thing. And so it was just all ridiculous. It was kind of the parody of a game show. So like one of the games was Shame This Puppy.
Great.
And we would have puppies inside. The contestants would open up their little podium, and inside was an actual puppy, and they would hold it up and try and insult it.
You idiot would be my go-to.
And then I would give random points based on that. And it was a really fun show. And it is nice that it lasted only one season. IFC didn't give it a shot. But it is still nice that people remember it. Mm-hmm. And people think fondly of it. I like that.
Did someone at IFC find the center, the chi, and say, "Can you do less puppy bits?"
I think their idea was like they were just never going to promote it or anything. And then when no one watched it, they're like, "Oh, well, there you go. It's not a good show."
Right.
And it's like, "Oh, well, no one knew it existed. There was literally no promotion."
Oh, right. And so early auditions for acting. Because what happens when you start getting any sort of traction as a stand-up? Someone says, well, you know what you got to do? You got to start auditioning to be in TV and movies. Mm-hmm. And how'd that work out for you?
This is this is a story actually from my first album. But I auditioned for a role on Sacha Baron Cohen's movie Bruno.
Alrighty.
This was when Bruno was coming out. And at first it was like essentially my manager asked me like, do you speak German? I was like, I don't. I realize I look like I should be able to. Mm-hmm. And then he was like, well, can you speak with a German accent? I was like, a terrible one. And he's like, I got an audition for you. And I was like, I am sure I am not right for it. And went in, and it was all improv based, and I was like very comfortable with that. And so we improvised, and this was just with the casting director. And then she asked me, "So do you speak German?" And then this is when I like fucked myself. I got excited. I was like in the room, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I speak a little German." And I just lied. And then she's like, "Okay, well, can I hear some?" Oh. And then I just made up German sounding words to her face, and she doesn't speak German.
Nope.
So she was like, "Okay, so that sounds great."
Yeah, you can recall bits and pieces from a Hitler speech.
Yeah.
like the next person. Und Heiden, und Reiten, und Sieden. Yeah.
Weizen, Feiten, Sieden.
Yeah.
And then she had not, and it was like a secret what this was for, so I didn't know what I was going in for. And then she's like, okay, well, I want to bring you in tomorrow, and this is for the Sacha Baron Cohen role. And Sacha Baron Cohen was my like comedy hero. I looked up to him so much. I thought Borat was amazing. I thought the Ali G show was fantastic.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be auditioning. It was like my first time I'd ever had a producer session or anything like that, especially for a movie.
Right.
And I was just freaking out all night, and it was the next day. And then I go in.
Were you listening to How to Speak German tapes?
I was just like trying to practice it like on my own. No, I wasn't like trying to learn anything about German. I was more just thinking in my head like, this sounds like a good accent. Like that's how little preparation I did. And then I walk in, and it's this huge room. There's 30 people in there. Uh-oh. Sasha's behind like a big desk. And the very first question that the director has is, "So you speak German?" And I right away I was like, "I sure do." And he's like, "Great, well then let's just start off with you just speaking some German with Sasha." And I was like, "I can't imagine a better way to start this." And And then Sacha Baron Cohen, like my comedy hero, sits there and like speaks to me in German, which to me just sounds like a series of dog whistles. And I just look at him like straight in his face with a big smile on, and I just like, Bein heizen ein zweiten Atem, aus warten schon zweiten Sinn. And then he looks at me like just like confused like a dog who heard a dog whistle. And it was crazy because I'd like, this is the biggest job interview of my whole life.
Right.
And I had just like walked in, and on the first question was like, so tell me a little bit about yourself. I was just like, blah, 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 blah. But then I just really tried to sell it with like a smile around the room. Like nobody else fucking speaks German here. Nobody else knows other than Sasha that I'm wasting his fucking time. But then, of course, there was a whole group of German producers who did speak German.
No.
So he thought maybe he couldn't understand like the dialect or something that I was speaking. So asked an actual German to talk to me.
In German?
In German again. And
so you don't even know what he's asking that German person.
I don't know.
He just turns to them.
Then that German starts talking to me in German, and then I'm just again replying to him in fake German.
Blah 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 blah.
and then at this point he's just like, this guy can't speak German. Like, get him out of here.
Did he say those words?
No. He just was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then the casting director is so wonderful. She was like, he's a really good improviser, and you could see Sasha being like, all right. And so let's get him, let's improvise. And I was like, in English? She's like, in English. I was like, okay, great. And then we start improvising, and then I actually start having fun because I'm actually speaking the language.
And are you making him laugh?
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know because, the character is that he's such a dick, and he kind of like his assistant, he abuses his assistant,
Gotcha.
So he's giving me all these like demeaning tasks to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I've already fucked this audition to its death. I could do whatever I want at this point. And so at a certain point, he's like, clean my glasses. And he takes his glasses off. And I instinctually reach for them with my mouth.
Sure.
And he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I want to clean the glasses with the cleanest part of the body, which is the mouth. And he was just like, oh, no. And he hands me his glasses. And then I just lick his glasses all the way around. And he's just like, clean those off. And I was like, of course. I like get the actual thing, and I clean it all off, and I leave. And it was the most humiliating experience of my life. But I do think I annoyed him enough that he broke character. And that is some small solace to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that he hated me that much that he stopped being Bruno for a moment. It was just Sasha.
Well, listen, the old adage, which is ingrained in all of us, whether these words were ever spoken to you or not, that when you're at an audition and they say, do you ride horseback? The answer has to be, I have a saddle in my trunk. It has to be.
Has to be, right?
Yeah.
And also, I thought maybe because that's what he does.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He wants to see if I'm willing to fucking commit.
If anyone should appreciate a fake German dialect, right? It would be that guy.
Yeah.
Should be that guy.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe he did appreciate it, but I did not get the part.
You did not feel in the room.
Yeah.
That
and
it
I
was
think
landing.
That casting director did not call me back in for 10 years.
Did you ever discuss?
Oh, yes. I've talked to her. We're now friends.
Yeah.
And she's cast me in other things now, but well, we have talked about it. Like the first time she brought me in like 10 years later, she was like, oh, I heard you tell a story about that. I was like, oh, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I was like, but it's all my fault. It has nothing to do with you.
Well, listen, you got to make choices.
And also I figured in my mind, I was like, this is a bold choice. They got to respect that at least.
Nope.
But they did not.
Turns out they do not. They do not have to respect
and that is the thing
thing
about a bold choice, is that it can easily go wrong.
Yeah, but I tell you, the audition process is designed to fail.
Mm-hmm.
So I've spoken about this far too many times, but you don't, but not with you. But you're never going to have the feeling during an audition that you're going to have when you're on the set as a hired performer, actor, whatever.
It's 100%. It's almost a completely different skill.
Yeah, yeah. And no matter how well you can wrap your brain around All I have to do is know that I'm an actor. We audition. That's what we do. Yeah. And I'm going to go in there and make a bold choice. And I'm going to commit to it 100%. And I'm going to therefore be different. No one else will be doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it's a numbers game. So a percentage of the time, that will be exactly what they want. And then a larger percentage of the time.
exactly what they don't want.
It won't be, but so fucking what?
Yeah. There was a really cool quote that from Philip Seymour Hoffman, and I this quote helped me, like, I think not crack auditions like I'm fucking
sure,
but like become much more comfortable with auditions. Is that, like, you have to think of an audition as when you're walking in, someone is paid rent today for you to act in, and that's fantastic. You know, someone has paid rent on a room that and they've invited you in to do some acting, and that's what you get to do. And I like thinking about it that way, where it's, as opposed to like, oh no, all right, another one, I gotta
no, get out of that space.
Yeah,
and it's similar to this is what I do.
Yeah,
this is actually as much a part of what I do for a living than the parts that I think are to be celebrated.
Yeah.
You got to find a way to celebrate the audition.
It's got to be joy.
Yeah, which is maybe a little more preparation on your side.
100%.
Put in the work so that at least when you walk in the room, even if it's just a bold choice that nobody else is making, you fucking nailed it.
Yeah.
That should be that day's work.
Yes.
Right? I think.
I feel like it should be, but then I have to come home and then continue to write my own shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then it's like, all right, well, you know.
So now you've directed two. So how far away are we from you writing and directing a movie?
I'm in the middle of writing one right now.
Yeah.
I'm writing a movie and two show pitches right now. And then also my stand-up.
So you know that thing you said earlier about, I wish I had started writing earlier, right? So I'm an old guy looking back saying to a younger, spectacular talent, don't put off the writing and directing. I just started myself.
Yeah.
And I've got maybe 15 years left in me to do it. And you've got way more than that. So you've already learned all these skills.
Yeah.
Right? Don't get in the way of that happening in terms of your devoted pursuit is what needs to take place instead of everything else.
Yeah.
Because you will love it. Because all these skills I found that served me as someone who creates and brings it on stage that night.
Yeah.
After a while, you don't just develop a point of view, you develop instincts. You develop instincts about everything.
Yeah.
To do with the piece as it's written. So like when you're writing, you can hear the musical rhythms of the dialogue.
Yeah.
And I remember the very first time I wrote a screenplay, and it was the first time that a literary agent read a screenplay of mine, I should say, and said, "So you're going to direct this, right?" And I said, "Well, I hadn't thought about that." He said, "Well, you've already directed it in the stage direction." You know, I said, "Oh, I overwrote the stage direction just so that a director couldn't fuck it up." He said, "No, you wrote very creative, cool transitions in the stage direction that help tell the story."
Do you write camera moves into your stage direction?
I try not to write the vernacular of. I started out writing a lot of angle on, new angle, and camera pans, and then I realized there has to be a storytelling way to get that across,
right?
Without using those words. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's so much fun to try to find the correct way to make it crystal fucking clear what the camera's doing within the stage direction.
Yeah.
That becomes another puzzle. And that's what I find as someone who's written sketches and improvised and written stand-up and directed pieces. And you've also written, according to the research, on these films right? It's all a puzzle. Every time we actually jump into any of these opportunities, we're puzzle solving. And that's what directing is. And I've interviewed a lot of directors now, and they all sort of say the same thing in a different way, which is you're problem solving all day long, but you're also solving the puzzle of every scene, of every moment, of everything.
That is what's fascinating watching recently being on film sets with The Big Sick and this other movie we just shot, is that every moment has to be figured out.
Yeah.
And it's a discussion, and if it's not working, you have to figure it out before you can move on.
Yeah,
especially with a comedy.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no rule book.
No.
No correct way to do it, just the way you choose.
Yeah.
And there are 9 ways to do every single So instead of being overwhelmed by that, just you have to develop those instincts. And now
this is the cool way to do it.
This is the way that works for me. How about everybody else that I'm counting on? And then you get someone with such a specific voice, Like Judd Apatow has really sort of forged ahead and supported and helped a great many creative people, like you mentioned, Big Sick. And when he makes his own films, he has his own set of instincts that rule his storytelling.
Yeah.
Right? And it's kind of singular, but it comes from years in the trenches.
Yeah.
And someone finally said, let's bet on him. And then he says, here's how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And so I would just encourage you, now that you've been in those puzzle-solving worlds and moments, and to just keep pushing forward with that.
Yeah, that is like my main focus at this point, other than continuing to do stand-up, because that's where I'll always have, my little soul part. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, people ask what, if you diversify enough, people will ask, what do you prefer? It's just inevitable. And I always say stand-up comedy, only because even though I don't work the hardest at it anymore, there will, and I directed a documentary called Misery Loves Comedy. Speaking of Amazon, it's available now. Featuring, almost 60 annoyingly famous, funny people talking about, the original thesis was you have to be miserable to be funny. And then it grew out from there into 10 different chapters. Bombs away to, who's your mommy and or daddy, in terms of support that you may have got growing up. But all of it is leading to, there's no more empowering moment than being live on stage with an audience and taking them for a ride of your choosing for however long that period of time
and
is.
Nobody can tell you you can't do it. That's the best part.
Yeah, I liken it to a prize fighter. So you'll have a trainer and a manager, and you'll have people in your corner. But when you step into the ring,
it's just you.
Moment by moment, you live and breathe by your own instincts. That's as close as it gets to stand-up, I think. There's a little less bleeding.
Slightly.
But not much. Not much less. All right. Well, listen. First of all, an hour has flown by. How the fuck did that happen? So now we move to a portion of the show called Ask Kevin. So you're allowed to ask me any question. It can be silly or sincere or neither.
Okay. When you are on your deathbed and you look back on your life, which is going to be the moment that will be the most valuable? From what arena of your life will it be? Will it be family? Will it be friends? Will it be career? When you look back on
what will I give the most value to?
Yes, the most value to.
Huh. Great question.
Oh, thank you. Really pulled it out of my ass.
I saw it happen. That's an award-winning question that I will steal and incorporate into this show. I'm going to say, I think it's the moment when someone I admire the most shows any sort of genuine, sincere appreciation of what I do creatively.
Yeah.
Those were the little tiny, because it's no longer chasing authority, figure, love, or any of that. It's no longer thriving for or accomplishing real, true love. It is, I've spent my life being a creative person, and so the people I admire most, very few have I met along the way. And to get any sort of genuine, not just pandering,
Right.
Or niceties.
Yeah, good set.
Yeah. Gene Hackman, one of the greatest, most versatile, brilliant, astonishing.
Yeah.
His performance in The Royal Tenenbaums is a clinic
So amazing.
of comedic acting.
Yeah.
Arguably one of the greatest of the last 50 years.
It just made me laugh thinking about
Hey,
it.
Coltrane, what's up? Argued with Wes Anderson against Coltrane using it.
Really?
Had a different jazz name in mind. And so glad Wes Anderson won that argument. But so just meeting him in passing and insisting on my fanship and of sincerity and having him in the most sincere way, and I of you, you know, I would say that's kind of
That's the top.
the deal.
Yeah.
In terms of that moment,
Yeah.
either that or you just want to avoid regrets. You know, like
Yeah.
I don't want to be thinking in that moment, fuck, I wish I would have tried peanut butter on an apple sooner.
Yeah.
Now it's time for Kevin's pop quiz. Between 5 and 15 points possible for each of the 3 questions. Once the final score is tabulated, it'll be posted on our website along with the current standing of the top 100. Are you ready?
All right.
Question number 1, Dave Koechner or Rob Riggle?
Dave Koechner.
Correct. Question number 2, Carl Weathers or the weather in Carlsbad?
Carl Weathers.
Also true. Question 3, Keith?
Yes.
Oh, 3 out of 3. It's magical. How does he do it? Wow, a perfect score. Wow, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, a great time was had, and I appreciate you making time for us.
Thank you for having me, Kevin.
And I can't wait to watch the next special and the next thing you do.
Hopefully it'll be coming soon. It's all written.
All right, so will you sit there uncomfortably while I wrap things up for the folks
Sounds
at
good.
home? Okay. I'm going to try to say Braunohler. Did I get closer?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
That's it.
Kurt Braunohler, ladies and Jews. Sammy, the greatest engineer the world has ever known, thank you so much for helping out today.
My pleasure.
Say less on the show. I want to thank Corey Levitt and Post. Sammy and Jamie, send their love to you. Write to us if you will, kpcsfanmail@gmail.com. Thanks to the fine folks at the Earwolf Studios for allowing us this wonderful space to come in and poop. Yeah, that's what it felt like when right before the show. Until next time, and as always, get out of my face.